Hi guys.
Hi.
Welcome back. So as you can see, it's just Miss Tickle and I. Unfortunately, Miss Todrick and Miss Hodges had a meeting to go to, so here you go. All right, so we're back in chapter 6, the Israelites, but today we're going to be talking about the Israelite kingdom. And this matters because the Israelites were ruled by several important kings. So we've already talked about a couple of leaders. Now we're going to talk about Israelite kings. And after this time, they were divided into 2 kingdoms and faced threats from neighboring empires. So get your notes ready and stay tuned. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so remember that originally the Israelites and the 12 tribes of Israel were ruled by judges, kind of local chiefs or kind of heads of the tribe, but eventually they decided that they wanted a king to be a united kingdom. So the Hebrew Bible talks to us about 3 of the early kings of Israel, and we're going to fill out a graphic organizer right now that kind of tells us a little bit more about them. The first is named Saul, and we have a 1 there because he was the very, very first king of Israel. And he won many battles. He was a great military leader who united the kingdom and managed to fight off many of their enemies, such as the Philistines, and to really solidify the place of the Israelites in the Holy Land, in the Promised Land, Canaan. However, he got to be very arrogant and very disliked by many of the people in his community. So he ended up losing the favor, and he actually died as a very unpopular king. The second king, David, there's a trophy here because he is the best loved. He is still considered by many in the Jewish community to be the best king that the Hebrews ever had. Now, he was a friend of Saul's, and he was raised under Saul, and he was an advisor to Saul. But after Saul passed away and stopped being king, David became king. He was considered the greatest and best loved, and he was known for being a great leader as far as military, but also he created the capital city of Jerusalem, and he wrote many songs and poems which are today part of the Hebrew Bible even. And the book of Psalms, for example, is one of them. And you'll see in your hot question a little bit more about the Psalms. These poems and songs show David's thoughts and feelings, his relationship to his God, and his relationship with how he felt about what was going on in the world. So they're still very relatable today. Now, his son was also a very well-loved king. His son's name was Solomon, and I have a little hammer here because Solomon was a builder king. Now, Jerusalem might have been built by David, but Solomon built many more things. He was considered to be very wise, and he wrote, just like his father, he was a good writer. His writings that are still part of the Hebrew Bible today are called Proverbs. And he built a great temple in Jerusalem that became the center of religious life. This is really important. I want you to put a star by this here, because if you were a Hebrew in ancient Israel, you would go to the temple for everything major in your life. When you were born, you would be dedicated to God in the temple. You would get married there. You would go there to worship and ask God for what you needed. And then eventually, if you were a Hebrew in ancient Israel, when you died, your funeral services would be held there as well. So this played a major role in every aspect of our life. So although these 3 kings were all very unique, all 3 of them played an important role. Saul, the first king, David, the best, and Solomon, the wise builder.
Okay, guys, now you are going to focus on your hot question. So your hot question says, choose one of Solomon's proverbs listed to the right. Explain a situation in your own life that this proverb could apply to. What I want you to do is actually circle the proverb that you choose, whether it's this one or this one, like my circles, or this one. Choose the one that you are going to pick to explain the situation in your own life to, and then use the lines to explain that situation. Make it good and thoughtful. We will be checking. Bye.
All right, guys, so I hope that you answered your hot question exactly the way we need you to so that we can know that you know what you're talking about. So we want to move forward now, and then you just learned about Solomon, the three kings, Saul, David, and then Solomon. And so after Solomon's death, the northern tribes rebelled against Jerusalem. And if you remember, Jerusalem is in the southern part of the land of Canaan. The northern tribes got their own kingdom together, and they named it Israel, and they had the capital of Samaria. And then as they set up these two different camps, two different kingdoms, they didn't really fight each other, but they divided into two different kingdoms. And when you're divided, you have a greater chance of your country falling, and that's what happens to the Israelites. The tribes in the south founded the kingdom of Judah and have Jerusalem as their capital. And then the Assyrians and the Chaldean Empire, I almost said that. The Chaldean empires started to surround Israel and Judah. And guys, that little part was I tell my class all the time, you don't necessarily have to be able to pronounce something correctly to know what it is. And so with the Chaldean Empire, we've had several discussions about how to pronounce that word, and so that's what we were talking about right there. But united we stand, divided we fall. So the kingdom of Israel, the Hebrews divided into two, northern part being Israel and the southern part being Judah. And when they were divided, it made it a lot easier for other kingdoms to come in, other empires to come in, and to conquer them and take over and incorporate those lands into their empire. So that's what happens with the Hebrew children and their story through history. So continue to do a good job. I've seen a lot of good hot questions from the last section of notes. I'm super proud of the way that you answered them fully. You answered both parts. My class did an amazing job on that. And so, guys, I really am proud of what you're doing. So continue to show us what you know so that we know how to help you best become the best 7th grader you can be in the future. All right, I love you guys. See you soon.
All right, guys, if you recall all the way back to Mesopotamia, the Assyrians were people who forced others to pay tribute. So the Assyrians would come in, they would take over your land, and they would force you to make some sort of payment. Now, if you didn't pay tribute, or if you didn't make the payment, the Assyrians would destroy towns, and they would burn your houses, they would burn estates, they would essentially destroy everything. So what happened was Israel refused to pay tribute to the Assyrians, which led to Israel being conquered in 722 BC. And this forced the Israelites to resettle elsewhere in the empire. The people of Judah survived the Assyrian conquest, but in 597 BC, the Chaldeans were the ones who ended up conquering Judah. Now, under King Nebuchadnezzar's rule, the Chaldeans destroyed the temple, and he forced thousands of people to move to Babylon. And Babylon is actually the capital for the Chaldeans. All right, then in 538 BC, the Persians conquered Babylon and allowed the Jews to return to Judah. But many actually chose to stay in Babylon. And this period is known as the Jewish exile. And if you don't know what exile means, it's when people are forced to leave their home or their country. So this time period when the Assyrians were taking over and the Chaldeans took over, this is known as the Jewish exile. Okay, we are back to talk about a difficult time. During this difficult time, religious leaders called prophets were important to the Jewish people. They were believed to speak directly to God and share his messages with the people, just as God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. Moses was a prophet that you learned about from lesson 1. Prophets stressed the importance of leading a good moral life and helping others connect with God.